Okay, everybody. So this is a recap for today's adventure. Overall, did we meet our objective? Absolutely, we did. So the objective today was to get from Riverside, California to Williams, California, which is approximately roughly an hour north of Sacramento. We got there. We left at 4 o'clock this morning out of Riverside, and we arrived here at 4 p.m. So that makes a 12-hour travel day projected out from what would have been, according to MapQuest, a 7-hour travel day. So if you're following along, you saw some of the challenges we had earlier. But the big objective, which was met, was that we left early enough out of Southern California to not only beat the traffic, but to beat the heat. So our first stop, that I forgot the name of it in my prior video, was a place called Buttonwillow, which is right north of the Grapevine. But I got to tell you, as we did climb up to the Grapevine, we did do a momentary stop to throw our jackets on. And Greg, so I'm go by Adventure Vin. I try to give a nickname to Greg. He wants nothing to do with it. He just wants to be known as Greg. But if my viewers come up with a good nickname for him, I will use it. So in the comments section, he has an Africa Twin. He has more experience than I do. Once in a while, he's been in my videos. A while back, long time ago, we were in the Mojave. We were doing the single track BDR. He actually fractured his leg, but finished the ride. And as I'm discussing that, he hobbles behind the camera shot. So if you want to look into that, it's our Mojave BDR. So if you want to see what he's doing, he wouldn't let me film him earlier, but this is where he's at right now. And the reason why we're in here, he's all nestled in, is because usually I would do it out and have a really cool backdrop with the KLR and the Africa Twin behind us. But here's the deal. It's hot. It's like an oven. I'm not kidding. You open up that door, it's like opening up an oven door to a pizza oven. And so, no. We paid for a hotel room to have air conditioning, and I'm going to give this review in the room with air conditioning. So, the Grapevine was cold, but I just threw my liner on out of my jacket. I talked about it earlier. I was okay, and I did throw on those Gore-Tex gloves. We were pretty toasty, but once we got into Buttonwillow for our first gas stop, we did take that off because the sun was coming up at that point. It was a little around 7 a.m. So if you're following along, you did see that we had to have an engine issue that we ended up solving with the JB Weld dual paste composition that you mix together, and then we threw on some steel stick on top of that. So how that was found out, and I'll tell you this: if I was by myself, I'd be on the I-5 someplace having my bike towed, because I would not have known I was dumping oil. I would have ran it. Maybe I would have known by the heating indicator, but the engine would have been toast. What had happened was, as the sun was going up, and I've having a little bit of a battery issue, but it's really a small issue. Greg was in front of me. In his rear view, it appeared that my headlights were going dim, a little bit lower. So he signaled me to pull over for that reason. As we pulled over to troubleshoot what might have been going on electronically, we found a little shady spot. And this is right after Buttonwillow, not much after Buttonwillow, heading up to Santanella on the Interstate 5 in California. He looked down and he goes, "You're leaking oil," which led to our major and bigger concern. So we found a good shady spot. We turned the petcock off, make sure there was no additional fuel had fallen out, and we laid it on its side. We wiped out as much oil as we can. I removed the skid plate, and in search of the crack, we were fortunate to be at a gas station. We had plenty of hand wipes, paper towels. We detected where there was a small fissure, crack, or fracture that would have been the exterior shaft part of where a retaining bolt goes in to hold the engine casing in when we went to go look at the doohickey. So we did the doohickey on the KLR prior to this trip, and there might have been some debris in the housing of that shaft that added to some friction, some more buildup that shouldn't have been there. It could have been a torque issue. Whatever it was such a fine crack, but the oil was profusely coming out. So at that point, if you look at my shorts, my YouTube shorts, the KLR is then at that point on its side. Fortunately for me, I did have the JB Weld. It was an older packet of JB Weld. Thank goodness it had worked. And then I had some of the steel stick. More fortunate for me is that Greg was with me, because I will tell anybody this. Yes, I had the JB Weld. I had the steel stick. Putting the KLR on its side like that would have been beyond me. Detecting what to do, and I wasn't even thinking. We had a alcohol swabs and some hand sanitizer that he kind of like I say sterilized, but you guys know what I'm saying. It broke up the residual oil. And then I had a file on me. I didn't have sandpaper, but I did have a file. Most of the tools I carry may sound very abstract to some viewers. Why would he have a file? But I will tell you, there was something that had happened that I either needed it or I had it, and we used it, and the file came out handy again. So I had a file, and we roughed it up a little bit. Those of you who might patch a tire with a vulcanizing glue and then the rubber patch, you know how you make it really, really rough so it adheres better? I wouldn't have known any of that. I wouldn't have known to clean it with the alcohol. I wouldn't have known. I would have just wiped it down. There's like 5 steps that he took that I had zero clue. I just would have, number one, the engine would have burned out on the side of the road. That would have been done. Had I noticed it leaking at a gas station, I probably would have called AAA and towed it someplace, and this trip would be done. But we were actually, I think we ate about an hour and a half of our time. We let it sit, and then we had only planned by the itinerary 2 fuel and food stops. It turned more into 5 because after we did patch it, let it sit for a while, we did turn the engine on, and we waited before we left the site, and there was no visible leaking. We rode it for about 20 miles further north up the highway, pulled over, did another assessment, threw some more fuel in the bikes, and took another look, and it was solid. It was holding tight. So, and I would say that was Intuit. We were Intuit. So we fueled up at 180 miles. He probably pulled me over when we were right about 250, and overall miles today was 500. So from the time we patched the bike to now, we have traveled another 250 miles without incident regarding that one thing. Thank goodness. I mean, like I said, I had the stuff to do it. I wouldn't have processed it, but maybe next time I will. The other thing I was going to mention is that it's been very, very hot. It got really hot. We were probably touched at the hottest, maybe about 106 degrees. We've been drinking a lot. Greg has a squeezable bottle that he's been dumping water while he rides and spraying me. It was kind of nice to have a little bit of that cooling effect. So we've been trying to abate the heat by, number one, keeping moving for our motorcycles and ourselves. And when we do stop, we were looking for shady places. And we stopped, when we did stop in Santanella, we did fuel up, and we found this really cool shady spot at a Subway sandwich, and got in there and got a bunch of ice and water, and we split a foot long there. That pretty much is composed. Now this first part of the journey, we're going to be on the road for almost 30 days. I wasn't really going to do much on these first few days traveling in the I-5 because it's just us. It's the Interstate 5. It's in California. There's really nothing spectacular to talk about. Now, there were fires in the area, and you might see some residual smoke way off in the distance, but we don't smell it. We don't see any ash, so we're good to go there. Originally, we were going to go to a campsite around maybe about a half hour south of here, but we switched it. The campsite wasn't taking anybody else for fear of the fire, so we came here, which we're both very happy to be. Exhausting day, stretched a 7-hour day to a 12-hour day. 7 hours travel time with our stops. It would have probably been closer to a 10-hour day, but we were both tired. We're both hot. Nice little hotel room we got here. There's a pool. We got a refrigerator, microwave. There's an ice machine. I filled up my ice. I've been drinking ice water since I got in here. So we would much rather be in beds in an air-conditioned room instead of putting up tents in a residual smoky campground. So it was well worth the money and well worth the stop. One other issue I did have, a couple of them. I have an issue with the battery. We don't know if it's the battery directly or the way that the motorcycle's charging the battery. I have one of those jump packs, those no-code jump packs, and that's been working. We ordered another battery to install once we get into Auburn, Washington, which is in 2 days from now. The other thing I have, which I've troubleshot before, not really too concerned about it, is that my speedometer will stop registering, which will affect the odometer and the trip meter. Anyone that knows, now I do have a Zumu GPS that is tracking my mileage, and I've already pre-planned all of our gas stops, so I know what my legs are. I know what my distance for the tank is, for the KLR 6-gallon tank. Although anybody watching this knowing to has a motorcycle, that's dependent on your trip meter to determine when you're going to fill up. and you just want to have the odometer. You want your speedometer working. I'm going to be in Canada. I want to know what my kilometers per hour is. So there's a quick fix to that. I won't go into it now. I did encounter that on my first generation 1 KLR. I did do a video where it was very effective. It has to do with the maybe I'll put a link in here, but it has to do with this washer that has these teeth on it that blends in. It's easier to see it in the video than me to explain it. So but it's not a maintenance issue. It's not keeping us from going forward. But going forward, tomorrow is day 2, and it's going to be August 5th. We are going to go from Williams, where we're at today, to Corvallis, Oregon, and spend the night at my daughter Stefania's house that she's renting with two other schoolmates that they're attending Oregon State University. This is a really nice house, has a couple of bedrooms. She's the only person there. There's no other roommates there, so we have a place to sprawl out. Maybe if we need to, we can get laundry done. It's free. That's nice. This is my daughter that you might have seen in a prior video this summer where I worked on her Suzuki TU 250. I had to replace some clutch plates, which Greg was on the other end of the phone walking me through that process because I couldn't figure that one out either. So at this point, if you're getting to know me or you do know me already, you're probably thinking, Vin has no business around motors, machines, and you're probably right. But it's not that you always know what to do. It's not that you always have to know how to do it. You just need to know somebody who can, and that's Greg. So whether it be that he's in place with me like he was today, was able to get me back on the road, or he's on the phone walking me through it, he's a good friend to have in a pinch like this. Tomorrow, we're looking at 460 miles. Once again, it's tracking at a 7-hour travel day. We got 2 planned stops, which will probably stretch it to a 10-hour travel day, maybe butts and saddle for about 7 hours. And the only major concern, we're probably going to shoot around leaving here about 6 a.m., not as early as 4 a.m. like we did today because we're both tired. But we're going to go over the Shasta Mountain Pass, Siskiyou Mountain Pass, which might be a little bit cold. We'll probably have the same kind of routine where we'll pull over, gear up a little bit, get a little bit warmer clothing, and then drop down into Ashland and then go into Grants Pass. So it might encounter some of the fluctuation. My wife Julie actually traveled it a couple of days before. We're meeting up with her in Auburn in 2 days, and she said she experienced some rain, some drizzles coming through. So we just got to have our head about us on that. One thing I'll conclude with this. One thing I will say is that one of the best tools in your toolkit is your state of mind, your where you're at. Neither one of us freaked out. We kind of Greg and I both agreed. I default to the extreme worst case scenario, and then he will back it up, and we'll do option or plan A, B, C, D. And then we come back to reality. So I just default immediately saying, well, if this is that, then we seriously were considering going to a Honda dealership, seeing what we can find in a Gen 3 KLR and what we can salvage off of this one, order the racks and stuff and send it forward into Auburn and configure a bike there. And then just, I don't know, donate this one. So our minds were working, but we didn't have to go to that extreme yet. And hopefully we don't. We still got, this is day 1, we still got a lot of traveling to do.
I'm hoping you do.
He's hoping, I don't know if you heard him or not, but Greg just said, maybe I'll call him Toolbox Greg. Actually, that sounds kind of derogatory. But Greg said, I'm hoping they do, meaning that he's hoping that I do encounter a catastrophic failure where it's like, hey, the show must go on, just go ahead and finance a Gen. Now my wife's watching these videos and she's probably saying, no way, I'm not doing that. But financing a Gen 3 KLR and thus we go forward. The only thing I was going to mention, somebody asked, was there any possibility it could have been something kicked up from the road that cracked it? I do have a Happy Trail skid plate, and I highly doubt that was it. So I had to drop the skid plate to work on it. One thing I'm going to try to do on my wrap-ups, and I want to keep these under 15 minutes, but I was wanting to do a product review at the end of every wrap-up, and let me see what I will do on this wrap-up, actually, because I'm not going to go outside and do a product review or anything on the bike. I've talked about this before, so I have a buddy I called Corvo Joe, turned me on to this. I think it's called a brake-free light. It goes on the back of the helmet. Very, very cool. So today, look up other. I'm not going to get into detail. I don't want to waste too much time, but my product review is a 2 thumbs up on this. when Greg was behind me, he says yes, it's very reactive when you slow down. You don't even have to like actually hit the brakes. If you're downshifting or your engine braking, just coming off your throttle, I will eventually slow down. And if no one's seen how this works in my prior video, I'll show you real quick. I'll see if I can. Come on, turn on. Okay, so there it is. There it's on. You see how bright it got? So if you're traveling and you hit the brakes, come on. Oh, I think it's in. Okay. It's not cooperating, right? So it worked great today, but now it doesn't want to cooperate. So there it's on, and then when you hit the brakes, it'll do something like that. That's one. It has like three different. It has three different. Whatchamacallit, programs that you could do, 3 or 4, where it'll blink and then it'll get real bright. But Greg said, "Hey man, that is really responsive." It was featured in Shark Tank. So if you want to get on YouTube and have some fun tonight, look up brake-free motorcycle helmet light. There's other better videos than mine. I will give it a 2 thumbs up. There are some things I'm going to review later, such as actually the helmet itself is a brand new Oriya XD5, not an XD4, it's an XD5. And I do have something to say about this helmet in comparison to my Shoei. I'll wait for another day for that, but I would say to do it all over again, I would have bought a Shoei helmet. But that's just me, and it's because of the shape of my head. Someone may love this helmet, but I'll get into that another day. Like, subscribe, get out there and ride. Like I always say at the end of this, man, hey, if there's something that you're passionate about and you didn't do it yesterday, don't wait till tomorrow, because you're going to put it off again. As soon as this video's over, start your planning session. Get the ideas flowing, get the juices going, because there's no tomorrow's not guaranteed. Thanks for following along. Hope you guys are enjoying this, and I don't know how much I'm going to do tomorrow. I'll probably start with an early morning one, and then we're going to hit the road. Hopefully you're only going to get 2 videos tomorrow, one in the morning and one at night. If I'm doing a video in between, something went wrong. Have a great day, YouTube.